You might have read about it on Twitter, you might have been there tonight yourself, you might have no idea what I'm talking about, but you've been very curious about this particular show. Tonight, I was at the first preview performance of The Hunger Games, and I'm going to tell you all about it. And to begin, we're going to go back in time. Oh my god, hey, it is Monday, October 20th, 2025. My name is Mickey Jo. I'm obsessed with all things theatre, and I volunteer as tribute to let you know all about the very first public performance of The Hunger Games on stage. I'm here in Canary Wharf, East London, at the purpose-built brand new venue, the Troubadour Theatre in Canary Wharf, where the first public performance of the show is set to take place in just a few hours. Now, this is obviously not going to be a full review from me because this is a preview performance, the very first preview performance in fact, but as I've done with previous high-profile new openings, including another at a Troubadour Theatre not that long ago, the new production of Starlight Express, I am planning to let you know a little bit about what you might be able to expect from The Hunger Games on stage. Much anticipation about how they are going to bring this very exciting, thrilling, cinematic story to the stage. Take a shot every time I say stage. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about the show but want to avoid spoilers, that is also possible. I will let you know which sections are going to contain explicit spoilers for the production, presuming that everything goes ahead and I get to see it this evening. I bought some resale tickets in the last few days because I was regretting my decision not to be there for the very first performance. But as of right now, it's about an hour and 45 minutes until the production begins. There was not yet information released about when the theatre officially opens. A lot of stuff around running times and timings is not made available until it's in performances, when they gain a little bit more clarity on that. But currently, the audience is forming a line and being held outside of the venue. Hopefully we get to go inside, but if the show starts a little late, if it runs a little bit long, that wouldn't be completely unsurprising for a first preview performance. The preview period for any theatrical production is an opportunity to iron out issues in the material and to help hone the thing in front of an audience, which is of course a really essential component of live performance and tells them an awful lot about how the show works. But also it's an opportunity for the technical team, for the stage management, everybody backstage. Everyone has been rehearsing for this, but only now do they get to properly run it. So we will see. I will let you know what the timings are going to be like this evening, and if you have tickets for any performances in the coming days or a little bit down the line, then that might give you slightly more of a sense of what to expect. For now, I'm going to go get in line and hopefully go and see The Hunger Games. More to follow as we continue. There is a little drama and more than a little confusion here from the queue. As it is reported, there is a rival queue forming on the other side, which is where the queue was meant to be, only this queue formed hours before that one, so now there is some confusion about which queue is going to be admitted first. As it stands, I don't think either queue is currently being let into the building, and it's ultimately moot because it's a ticketed event and we're all going to a predetermined destination. However, you can imagine there's probably going to be a lot of demand for merchandise, for whatever merchandise is available at the first preview performance. Historically, that might not be the full range of merchandise, it might not be any. Getting all of the different elements of a theatre-going experience together for a first preview performance does take a village. 7:30 looms, and we are officially in a fringe queue because we have seen pictures of the main queue, and it's massive. Hopefully, as and when, at this point perhaps if, they open the doors for this evening's performance, everyone is going to get given adequate time to get into the theatre. I don't think the show is starting anytime soon. I would place a bet of maybe an 8:30 start time, but at a certain point, they will have to consider whether they're planning to go ahead. I think if we're approaching 7:30, I don't think they'd have cancelled prior to this. The queue is moving, everybody. The queue is heading towards the building. I've never been so excited to approach a set of doors. Well, Disneyland, but this comes very close. Okay, I've just come through that door you can see over there. Tickets have been scanned after a quick bag check, all very standard theatre security. This is the auditorium that awaits you. I dare say this is going to become something more of a box office, but like other Troubadour theatres, it's a very open, sort of a warehouse-style space with multiple floors. We are the first real audience walking into this building, and many of us have immediately headed to the merchandise. I'm not necessarily buying anything, but I want to show you as much of it as I can. Here's a slightly better view of everything. You can see that Hope Will Rise hoodie. I think that's on the back of the one you're seeing on the right that just has The Hunger Games on stage London there. That purple is a pullover with a nice shiny gold insignia on it there. I think what we're seeing on this hoodie over here is the enamel pin, well, not the enamel pin, but I think it's a pin. I think it's a little Mockingjay like we saw on the top of the building. We can also see posters. We can also see the backs of t-shirts. Oh, the purple one has this on the background that says, "May the odds be ever in your favour." We also have a pattern on the mugs and the tote bag there. That is all of the different districts. We also have, I can't quite make out what's on the orange hat. Is that just like a silhouette of Katniss in some fire? We also have, I don't know if that's one, a plain notebook, and two, the actual book. I don't know if it's the play script yet. We can see some things over at the front here. We have currently a £12 souvenir brochure. I dare say this is pre-production images, which is why it might be a little bit cheaper now and why that might go up. We have, I think, some bookmarks to represent the different districts as well. We have a water bottle. Oh, we have an illustrated version of the Hunger Games. Some more trinkets over here, look. We have, there you go, that's the pin. Is that a magnet on the left? That very bright red thing, yes. A different bookmark. Some little toggly things there. Here's a better look at all of the prices there. And the front of the blue t-shirt. Here's what Aaron James just purchased. This is the souvenir brochure, which we'll give you a little bit of a better look at in just a moment. And that's the pin.
It says London on it.
It does say the Hunger Games on stage, London. So it's not just a generic Hunger Games pin, it's also a little bit three-dimensional there, as we have some information, some light spoilers perhaps, for the production that we are hopefully about to see. They've let us into the building. I feel optimistic at this point, even though it is obviously not going to start on time, because that's already happened. Important part of the new venue coverage. I have just been to the first floor toilets, had a very positive experience. I don't know if I would call them the most thrilling new toilets, but, you know, very clean and lots of them, which is what we appreciate. This is a very spacious venue, which in any new build is something that we like to see, rather than the very cramped historic theatre buildings that we are sort of plagued with in the West End and to a certain extent on Broadway. So we like to have lots of toilets. We look for great accessibility, wider spaces. Here's a little glimpse of the bar area. Again, nice and open, lots of space, even with lots of people having just suddenly and all at once entered the building. There are places to sit down. Worth pointing out, it's possible I had a very male privilegey toilet experience because the women's toilet queue is massive. I am officially queuing to enter through door A. You should have the information on your ticket about which door to enter through, and they also pointed that out to me when I had my ticket scanned downstairs, which was very helpful. Aaron and I entering through different doors because I bought resale tickets for this show via Twickets yesterday. So this was a very last-minute decision, and we are in different districts. Ours is a forbidden love, separated by geography, and this evening by seating plan. But it does mean that we can give you a nice bit of an overview about what it's like sitting in different sections, because we have been told, with no spoilers yet still, that we are going to have different experiences, and that extends beyond just seeing the show from slightly different angles. Here we go, getting ready to find our way to our district, entering the world of Panem. I think it's Panem. Someone tell me in the comments if it's not Panem. I've been saying Padam, Panten. Okay, if you don't want to see what the auditorium and the stage looks like, look away now. But this is the corridor we're currently queuing down, with entrances to different districts. I can see 3, 11, and 6 perhaps on the other side. I'm trying to find my way to District 8. I dare say signage will improve after such a time as the walls have been painted. Once again, look away if you don't want to see the auditorium, because when you look up, you will. Here we go. This is it. This is just what I've walked into. That was a really cool entrance to walk down these steps just behind me into this auditorium here. I am in Section 8, Row G, Seat 18, which happens to be on the aisle here, which is ideal. You can play Where's Wally with Aaron James if you would like to, but I will zoom in and make it a little bit easier. He is over here. Have you seen him yet? He is there. Not looking at the camera, but that is Mr. Aaron James, and that is Section 1, District 1, I should say. Other things we can notice, there is a suspended little bow and arrow, little longbow in the middle there. We also have District 12 projected onto the floor. We can see some screens up there. We can see an awful lot of rigging currently in the shadows, including some cage-like structures above us, some light possible pre-spoilers. We can see some sort of megaphone-style speakers on multiple sides over here. In terms of the seating sections, we have the 2 here, either side, the 2 mirroring them over there, 4 each corner. And then we also have some little sort of box seating areas, 2 there, mirrored behind us presumably, and then 1 or 2 rows, I think, of upper mezzanine levels, all given their own different district numbers. So there you go. We also have screens around the foot of the playing space on the front of all of these different blocks of seating. Do I see trapdoors in the floor? I don't want to speculate too much, and I don't want to give you any possibly accidental spoilers. We also have these nice light cons. I like the way that the steps are lit in each section. That strikes me as very safe and also quite stylish. I mean, it's a very good-looking auditorium here, isn't it? It does immediately invoke gladiatorial combat. Do you want my prediction? Well, not my prediction. This is Aaron James's prediction about something that might be a spoiler. If you don't want to know, skip ahead until I'm no longer showing the playing area here, but I'm going to turn this round and show you. So I don't know if you can see, but these sections here, that one and the same on the other side, they kind of look like they're the wrong way round, right? With where the steps are, it looks a little bit peculiar. And that, we think, is because they are going to rotate in and clip together to the main seating section, allowing for a wider space between the two sections. So basically, hold on, let me hold my microphone in the right place. We think that is going to twist round there, and this is going to twist round here to create two banks of seating in traverse on either side. That's the theory that Mr. Aaron James has come up with, and I'm pretty persuaded by it, simply on the basis of what these seating sections look like at the moment. But I will be able to confirm that for you after the show. Meanwhile, it is approaching 8:15. I'm not going to give you a consistent update on the exact timings of tonight. I'll let you know what happened, but with any luck, this won't be applicable to future performances and the ones that you might be coming to. But if it starts before 8:30 and it's less than an hour delayed, that is, to my mind, a bonus. I'm not explicitly hiding from the press team. I'm also not making direct eye contact, and they've walked past me twice. I hope they have a nice time. I hope I have a nice time. I'm going to let you know some things in the interval, and you will be able to gauge from my reaction how shook I am. I'm quite excited, I'll be honest. Okay, so we are in the interval. The performance started around 8:30.
Yeah,
I
which
think.
I guessed. Not before when we were outside, but I guessed suddenly. I was like, this is going to take a normal opening of the theatre, so it will take an hour to
It started to feel as though everything was just pushed back that 1 hour, and hopefully by tomorrow, or certainly by a certain point in previews, that might have fixed itself a little bit.
And we kind of got told why.
We did, yes. So Matthew Dunster, the director, took to the stage around 8:30 and made a speech letting everyone know that obviously brand new theatre, big show, brand new theatre, and there was every logical reason for them to cancel, but they didn't want to, for the audience who are already big fans of the IP. Everyone is here for the first preview, but that earlier in the day, I think, as a result, well, I'm not going to speculate, but, and we'd sort of heard a rumour about this as well, that a company member had been affected by illness, and so what they're doing for this performance, which thus far has barely manifested, is to have an understudy read lines for one smaller supporting role from side of stage, while a member of the fight team fills in the physical stuff.
In Act 2, yeah.
But only during fight sequences, not during narrative sequences.
Yeah, so there's a gap where you can tell that person they're being voiced in.
Only on one occasion has that happened thus far, because it's not a big character, it's a tribute from another place.
Yeah.
And hopefully this won't affect forthcoming performances either, but understudies are never rehearsed for first preview, because the cast are barely rehearsed for first preview. So that's been a substantial explanation for the delay. Otherwise, and the first act has run 1 hour 20, which I don't think it always will, it's a pretty standard performance. It is not the worst first preview I've been to. There's something a little echoey in the sound quality, but it's also a non-traditional playing space. You're
in like an big auditorium.
Yeah.
Think Wembley Park where Starlight is that live.
And we're in the round as well, like it's an arena amphitheatre style of setup there, so that's a big part of what's going on. There are occasional pause moments where things just feel a little bit protracted, mostly because of
just set changes
and costume changes, little things like that, but nothing that substantially that has gone wrong thus far. I will tell you more about the material and the way they're actually staging it and some big wow moments, but generally it's been really exciting, especially to be part of the first audience.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty shook. I think a lot of people are almost stunned into silence, where we're not really sure what the confines of it are as well, and what the expectations. Just like, oh, okay, now this is happening. Oh, and now this is happening. And so there was a really big applause at the end of the first act, and throughout, I think there are probably moments where other audiences Mike Clapmore. We're also being very British about some things that are happening. I'm here with one of the many fans of Hunger Games with a nice hairstyle, I've noticed.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I didn't do it myself. My friend did it. Shout out to Shay.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And what's your name?
My name's Tegan. Hi.
Very nice to meet you. Are you enjoying so far?
I'm more impressed than I thought I would be. Like, I love it so much.
There you
It's
go.
really cool.
There's the reaction. There's the word on the street.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Go
much.
see it.
Some people, and this sort of goes with the territory with any kind of exciting IP like this, but some people are in really cool cosplays and outfits. They look amazing. It's really cool. This is the walk down to the seat that I was telling you about. Isn't it cool? Isn't it really wild? We're back and the interval is about to be over because we want to eventually leave the theatre tonight, but obviously there has been a change in the preset for the second act. We are seeing lots of suspended backpacks. It's a throwback to my scouting days, but the spoiler that is coming, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, that we will be interviewing Mr. Aaron James about later because he is sat over there, is that we were correct. These outer sections and these outer sections, not always at the same time, sometimes it's just this end, sometimes it's just this end, are in fact moving around like that to allow for a more intraverse, wider opening so they can bring things on there, so they can bring things on here, which is pretty damn cool. And I dare say it's going to happen even more in the second act. That is everything I'm going to tell you for now. There is plenty more to talk about later once we get the chance. But the next thing you will see, presumably, is going to be the curtain call for the very first preview performance, which I will tell you in advance. Often it's the last thing they rehearse, and so usually a first preview bow sequence is not what it's always going to look like. So if you just see a very bog standard set of people bowing that looks a little bit unrehearsed, there is every explanation as to why. Okie dokie, that was the curtain call, and that was the first preview performance of the Hunger Games at the Troubadour Theatre here in Canary Wharf. I was trying to see if you can see the Mockingjay on the top from here, and I don't think you can, but it is now midnight, and I'm going to get home somehow. Worth it to be there and to be among the first real audience to see and experience the way that they are bringing that very challenging story to the stage and some of the audacious stuff that they're doing, which I will tell you more about as we progress through the latter portion of this video. The running time, which in the immediate future of performances isn't going to whittle down that quickly, I wouldn't have thought. Tonight's interval ran a little bit long, but not that long. Not as long as some general press night intervals that I've been in. To be honest, it can't have been more than 25 minutes. Or maybe, I don't think it was that long, but that would have been a 3-hour 15 running time, which is a little longer than what they are aiming for. So we will see. There's definitely parts where they were just sort of hanging on a moment or on a lighting or a sound cue while the next thing was getting ready. So just in terms of slickness, I'd have thought 10 minutes will fall right off of that, and possibly even more as they change the show. But we're going to head home now and then tell you more about it. Okay, so I'm now back home after the Hunger Games. I'm not doing this in my normal setup with my normal camera and microphone and everything, because if I do, I'm going to talk for 40 minutes. And I'm trying not to talk for 40 minutes, mostly because I got home at 1:30 a.m. and the next thing I'm doing after I talk about the show is editing this and throwing this up on the internet. And I don't want to be doing that at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're going to try and do the semi-streamlined version of this. If I don't cover any questions or curiosities you might have about the production in this video, please feel free to share questions and comments down below and I will get to them. Or very possibly someone else who was also at tonight's performance might, because I think my experience of it was an experience of it and other people saw and experienced different things. So let's start with the alleged first preview drama of it all. And I think when it comes to first preview performances in general, there is a lot of leniency that needs to be afforded to the theatre inherently, and there was a lot of discussion of this tonight while people were queuing on the street, and I read about it in comments as well, and various exchanges people were having about, no other industry in the world where people would come and like tolerate you not being completely prepared for audiences or whatever it might be. Theatre is in a very difficult position, especially as far as entertainment goes, of needing an audience to really finish. They're not done rehearsing entirely. Yes, you do a dress rehearsal. Yes, you have invited audiences, but until you have that authentic exchange with the audience, you haven't really finished preparing what the show is. And that continues throughout the preview period, but particularly for the first preview, especially for a big and complicated show, it's a minefield to be able to pull all of this off. And you know what's even harder, and I think was actually more of a challenge this evening, is opening a new venue. Opening a new venue with a brand new show, and it's a complicated new show. That is such an undertaking. The fact that we didn't have a cancelled first performance, which happens fairly often, is really, I think, quite astounding. I was very happy just to get to see the show tonight, even if we ended up leaving and getting home very, very late. That was not, to my mind, beyond the realms of possibility. I wonder if, for the benefit of audience members who are travelling and just to kind of set expectations, whether first previews, especially for productions like this, especially at newly opening venues, ought to sell tickets for the evening without specific timings and say, you're coming to the first preview evening. That brings me to the other thought, which is I think everyone should kind of ease up on the criticism of the first preview of it all and everything that happened with timings, like I said, and given the challenges that they might have faced during the day, I think all still really impressive that the show was as slick as it was. I think if producers want to keep falling back on, it's only a first preview, don't judge us, don't take everything to social media, don't be so critical, it's a first preview, then you have to price it accordingly. If you want the first preview compassion from the audience, then you got to charge them first preview prices. And I will let everyone decide what that means for them, because I think that's a personal thing, what you are willing to pay for something that is inherently still developing, still in progress, still in rehearsal. That's up to you. And I thought the actual show itself, once we got in there, once it started, I was astonished that we didn't have showstops, that we didn't have anything going discernibly really wrong. There were moments of faffing about with props, and there were some extended pauses while we had costume changes. All the stuff that you would expect to only get slicker. But let's segue then into a conversation, a spoiler-free conversation about the show and what it's like and what people can expect. This is not a review. If you want a review from me, you're going to have to wait a few weeks. We do not review based on first preview performances. This is a descriptive overview that is not analytical. So The Hunger Games on Stage is a, from what I can tell, very faithful adaptation of the first Hunger Games story, the one adapted for the first Hunger Games film. It does not venture into prequels or sequels. It tells the story of Katniss Everdeen alongside 23 other tributes from the 12 districts of Panem entering into the Hunger Games, the majority of which actually take place in the second act of the show. It's a 2-act play incorporating some music that I believe has been heard before in the Hunger Games world. I think these are songs from the films, rearranged and reorchestrated because we couldn't find an explicit composer credited in the programme. There are also moments of dance that kind of blurs the lines with dance and movement. There is a lot of combat. There is a lot of aerial stuff. It is first and foremost a very visually impressive staging, almost entirely in the round. So the visually impressive elements don't come necessarily from traditional set pieces and flats. It's more about things that they are creating using various bits of staging, which I will tell you more about in the spoiler-inclusive section. But the whole thing, because of that, is visually striking and impactful. There are some really audacious and jaw-dropping moments of staging. And with the way that it's framed in the context of the games themselves, and certainly by the time that we get into them in the second act, the prevailing emotion of the whole thing is tension. It all feels quite unsettling, and to do the Hunger Games and to stage it in an auditorium configuration like this inherently invokes gladiatorial combat and positions the audience to feel like spectators to that. So it's not going to be a comfortable watch, and it shouldn't be a comfortable watch. It is tense and unsettling and at times a little bit scary. I wouldn't call it particularly gory or explicit. There is a lot of heavily implied violence. You also, for people who are concerned about this, see moments of blood and indications of blood. Seldom are the two linked together. Seldom is a moment of brutal violence linked to a visual rendering of blood. You tend to see them separately. So there's no sort of moments that made me wince. Many of the characterizations feel quite familiar of the film. I do believe that everything is faithfully adapted. We don't have new characters. We aren't reworking or changing characters. We are still using American accents. I'm not super familiar with the Hunger Games, but I'm given to understand that there is quite a strong parallel between Panem and the US, because I wasn't initially sure whether it had to be tethered to America, but I believe that is the case. The one little tidbit of commentary I will offer at this time in terms of my own audience experience this evening, as well as paying attention to the experiences of other audience members, and a lot of them presumably being hardcore Hunger Games fans, is that I think they've got the hardest stuff done. The logistical challenges of staging this, I think, were pretty well met this evening, and what they're going to be honing throughout the remainder of the preview period and throughout the rest of the life of the show is going to be the emotional storytelling. That being said, let us continue into a spoiler-inclusive conversation about the audience experience, the design, and some other elements of the production, some of the specific visual things that they do. So at this point, I'm going to summon Aaron James to the vlog. Do you want to come and talk about your moving experience? I will kneel on the floor and interview you. So Aaron and I were sat in different sections, and we had sort of inferred beforehand that it kind of looked like your seating section was one of the ones that might move and mine was not.
Yes, and I did, in fact, move.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. Like, when you think about Cinderella, because that's probably the easiest one to compare for many people to understand.
Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella at the Gillian Lane.
Yeah, when it was in the West End and they used to revolve and the whole front seating area would go round in a circle during Act 2. You move a lot more in the Hunger Games.
Happens in the first act.
But you don't move as much, as far.
Yeah.
So you just kind of swivel, a bit like, I kind of compare it to like a wing. Like a bird's wings, like a butterfly wings.
Yeah.
Where you kind of go, you join the rest of the main seating blocks. You swivel, when you swivel back into place. So it changes between in the round to traverse or thrust, because sometimes one side would open and our side wouldn't, because that's how I knew what to expect, because the other side did it first. Mm-hmm. And it's really smooth. Like, you can hardly, like, you can go, oh, we're moving, but it's so slow and so, like, I was really impressed with the fact that there was no kind of jolt or at all.
It was quiet, too.
Yeah, it was really smooth.
One of them had gone back and I hadn't noticed, because I saw it going out and I was like, oh, that side's going out. And then next time I looked, I was like, that side's going out again. I never noticed it come back, but it must have.
Yeah, they moved quite a lot. Like, we probably moved about 8 times or more. But it happened really smoothly. I will say when it's out in the full long view,
when it becomes traverse like 2 long sides,
then your views can get a bit tricky if they're further down, because you're kind of like having to tilt your head like that to see. But otherwise, I mean, I didn't miss anything. It's just like
not obstructed as such, but
not
less ideal.
Yeah, you just have a more varying view than in the central blocks, because at some point you're looking one way and at another point you're looking in a completely different mindset. So your mindset changes a bit.
I didn't get to move, so I was initially jealous, but I do think on balance I probably had the better seats in terms of
I think
overview of the show.
Yeah, I think in those seats that you had, you kind of just got like a very good overview of everything the whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in the ones I had, the novelty's there a lot more in moving.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel a bit more like, oh, I'm experiencing it. I'd say if you're a theme park person, my seats would be the ones to go in, because I did feel like I was at a theme park. Because of the motion and the movement, I felt very like, oh, I've gone to...
But it's not G-Force.
No. It's so calm, so easy. It just feels like you're in, like, the Carousel of Progress. It's that level of moving. You're moving the people movie. You're moving very, like, calmly and slowly. It's not... I don't think anybody would get motion sickness because there's no jolting.
Yeah. Staying in the world of seat descriptions, because I was on... I was on an aisle in District 8. People walked past me a lot. Katniss and Peter both passed me on the way to their TV interviews towards the end of the first act. They walked right. I think Peter waved to me. And I was like, yeah, champion. I was not my district, actually. Shouldn't have waved back. I was very bad.
People walked up and down asked quite a lot.
Yes,
But we
Caesar
just had
Flickerman
one
was on
aisle,
yours. Yeah.
So, or if you're anywhere near an aisle where it's seats on the side of your aisle, you will get quite a few people come up and down.
But I think mine was the prime.
Yeah, yours had
aisle,
the main. Yours had
if
like
that
the
matters
main.
to
You had like the leading characters, because you also had.
Effie Trinket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also had her come up on your side.
I do think, in terms of the show, though, the whole thing is played truly to the round.
Yes.
I don't think there's any moments where I thought, oh, we're really being favoured on one side versus another.
It was very open to everyone. Like, it felt very aware of everybody.
Yeah.
I think you could tell they definitely thought about viewpoints.
Because it's so tiered, my view was great, the rake was great. It was
Yeah.
all very open. And we heard similar things from people who had bought in the upper section. Someone who said they were right up at the top for obviously a very affordable price point, said they had a great unobstructed overview. And that's not always the case with being up in the gods.
It sounds like when you're up there, it's just a case of like leaning like it where you would do if you were on the front row of like a balcony.
Sure.
Where you're just going to lean, you might lean forward to look, because if you were sat straight, maybe you wouldn't get everything.
Yeah, there's also been a lot of conversation about accessible ticketing options, and it has been separately. I heard about some people's experiences this evening. I wonder if there were teething problems related to that as a result of the first preview of it all, because I have been assured that there are accessible seating options, that there are wheelchair spaces, that all of that is included, and it would be pretty shameful if it wasn't with a new purpose-built venue in 2025. I would be astounded if that were the case. So when I was hearing that, I sort of couldn't believe it, and it has been said to me that there are accessible spaces, and on the website it advertises an entire route. You have to contact them separately and go through a separate specific channel for access tickets for wheelchair spaces, but I am assured that they do exist. I dare say transparency on that will come over the coming days and over the coming performances. But that, I think, is everything that we have to say about seating sections. Oh, there's some nice light cues in conjunction with when they... This is a spoiler section, I can probably say this. When people die from those districts, is the word, then there's a nice red light cue on them and a red light on that district as well. That happened to me one time. It happened to you as well.
Oh, I didn't see it happen to our district.
The entire thing flooded red. You didn't feel that?
No.
I noticed.
I'm glad you said that, because genuinely I was like, oh, it's weird that they just did 8 and 9.
Yeah, well, you weren't very emotionally connected to your tributes, is what I'm hearing about that. Bad District 1 person. Bad. Anyway, I'm going to continue talking about the show now. Thank you so much for joining us. Okie dokie, where were we? Let me continue telling you about the show itself. Spoilers on how it is brought to the stage aesthetically, design-wise. So as we have now discussed, those seating sections can open up and reveal slightly more. They reveal, on one side, a very long and tall screen, which has projected onto it sometimes graphics, sometimes John Malkovich being President Snow. If people haven't yet realised this, he is not appearing in person in the play. He is only appearing via pre-recorded video sections. He's in a handful of scenes, probably as many as he features in the film. But they are played with someone live on stage making conversation with a pre-recorded John Malkovich, which went surprisingly well, actually. On the other side, there is a smaller screen and also an entrance through which they bring on the occasional set pieces. For the most part, the most involved set pieces come up through this giant oval hole in the floor with a hydraulic platform that moves up and down. Sometimes it lifts up just slightly to create a sort of mini stage within the playing space, but mostly it pulls apart and then a big platform comes up with different set pieces having been placed on it, like the train that takes them to Panem, or like Katniss's apartment in the capital. We find out about that as a possibility of the set really early on. There are also 4 similar hydraulic trapdoors located around it. I was getting a little bit nervous about all of these young actors and all of these holes in the floor that open periodically, and the amount of like haze and dry ice covering it all. I'd have been very concerned if I was an actor in that playing space, but this is why they rehearse extensively, and I'm sure there are many safety protocols, and with lights and everything and their vantage point, you probably can see where the holes are in the floor. I hope so anyway. There is one really cool visual moment. This is going to be a big spoiler, but you might want to know about it. An iconic thing that happens in the story when they have this parade of all of the tributes. You know where I'm going if you know the Hunger Games. Before the games themselves, and Katniss and Peter from District 12 are styled in outfits that appear to be catching fire. The way they do this on stage is they don't have their outfits don't really catch fire. They sort of glow orange and emit steam like their Rusty and Starlight Express, but the chariot that they stand on, which is suspended up above the audience and flown across the playing space through the sky, does blast fire out of the back. So that's pretty cool. There are a few more similarly grand pieces of staging. There are 2 long lighting rigs that are lowered down. One of them gets lowered down a lot in the second act at an angle, and is representative of trees that Katniss climbs during the games themselves. She is rigged up and suspended. There are many occasions when performers are similarly suspended, lots of aerial sequences. One of the coolest things in the show, I don't think that many people noticed, which is there were 2 pairs of performers on either side of the auditorium sideways, and we saw a little bit of this when the show was first being majorly announced and they released some of the footage from the workshop. We saw people sort of standing sideways on walls and fighting. This was happening back behind and above my section and in front of the people sat on balconies. I only noticed at the last minute, so I turned around enough to see that nobody else was turned around, and I hadn't really spotted it on the other side. Something with lighting. I just think if they're going to go to the trouble of doing that and having people standing and fighting sideways, at one point someone is also like upside down walking across like they're Bert tap dancing in Mary Poppins. For goodness sake, draw more attention to it, because that was really cool and I only noticed when it was about to be over. Costuming was doing that thing where it was familiar of the characters and the visual identities that people have come to associate with them, but also just different enough from the versions created in the film. Still unmistakable iterations and representations of these characters. They wear these sort of sci-fi bodysuits when they are competing in the Hunger Games. Katniss gets a couple of nice gowns. Effie Trinket be turning looks as she does. What's interesting is there are a handful of different means of theatrical storytelling. In terms of the material itself, for quite a lot of the introductory scenes, Katniss is narrating, and it feels very much like one of those books that has been brought to the stage where it retains that feel of a central protagonist just telling us what is going through their mind. That happens less and less as we continue, largely because Katniss has scene partners, so it's no longer a necessity. There are a great many moments that are underscored with music. There are moments of extended music. There's at least one diegetic song performed when they get to the capital. There are also a lot of moments of dance. I feel like they're going to pull back on a lot of these because it is the one aspect of the show which I think certainly fans of The Hunger Games as a book, as a film, are going to go and see, and I think they might take a little more issue with that than with anything else. I think the dance parts of the show are probably the things that are going to draw a little more criticism, and so I feel like they might pull back on those, if not cut a few of them entirely. But I was saying before about different methods of theatricalizing the story and different means of theatrical storytelling. There is a pretty beautiful way of bringing together Katniss's home in District 12. We have different company members holding these different pieces of wood and standing them up to sort of represent this ramshackle house. Then you have moments of dance where it becomes a little more physical theatre-esque. You have the lighting rigs representing trees and this sort of more threadbare approach to conveying what is going on in the world of the Hunger Games themselves. A lot of the performance, certainly for Katniss, becomes very physical in the second act. She is sprinting around that stage. She is running in circles. They do a lot with haze. They do a lot with lighting. They do a lot with sound. There are also a lot of props. There's a big shift in the second act towards just a lot of suspended things and a lot of things raining down or coming from above. There's a little drop of blossoms at one point. There are also emergency supplies parachuted in that I was desperately worried were going to comically hit someone in the back of the head. Thankfully, they did not this evening, but I'm telling you it's only a matter of time. I'm probably forgetting about a couple of really impactful things that happened and some standout visual moments, but it was a lot of show. It was 3 hours and 15 minutes of show this evening, much of which was just sort of coming to terms with it and figuring it out and seeing it and going, oh, that's how they're doing that, and oh, that's how this is going to work. Are we going to get flames? We're going to get this. That's how this character is. Now that's what this sequence is going to look like, because it's such an unbelievable concept to be bringing to the stage. I mean, it's like with A Lord of the Rings. It's just deeply challenging. And I feel like what they're finding now is that it does invite a little more direct comparison than Stranger Things: The First Shadow or Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, because both of those were original stories that hadn't been seen before on screen, that were able to create their own more achievable goalposts in terms of visual effects, because the stuff that they do, on screen it wouldn't be all that impressive, but on stage it is. Hunger Games has a different challenge, where it's taking a fantasy epic from the screen and it is having to replicate that in a different theatrical context. And it's not trying to replicate it directly. It's not doing a My Neighbor Totoro and doing shot for shot, like, how do we make this happen, but with puppetry. It's trying to do something wholly more original, and it's still carving out the visual identity as well as the storytelling identity for exactly what that is. And that, I think, is something that is only going to sharpen over the coming days and over the coming preview performances. At this stage, some concerns, and this is still not a review, but it would be disingenuous, I think, not to share that I was concerned that this audience of diehard Hunger Games fans at this first preview performance didn't seem wholly emotionally engaged in the storytelling. And I don't know that I was either. And I think a contributing factor to that is the way that the performance had begun, so possibly subsequent previews will be a better indicator of this. There are moments when we as the audience are incited to applaud, to react, and there wasn't much of that going on. People were sort of very sat back and just taking it all in. There were moments that in a different context might have inspired gasps audibly or applause. I kept thinking, when those banks of seating moved for the first time, like a Broadway audience would have clapped when they'd finished moving. And I think there was applause even in Cinderella during the first moment of Stall's revolution, when people realised what was going on. And the audience spent much of this evening's performance, I think, figuring out what the Hunger Games was, but I am so curious to see how those reactions continue, to see how the show develops. Undoubtedly, in terms of the theatre itself and the theatre-going experience, there will only continue to be development, and everything will get more and more finished. The show itself and the reactions of fans to it, I will be watching very, very closely. And of course, a little later next month, I hope to bring you my full review of the show to disclose everything that I felt about this production. And in the meantime, if there's anything else that I haven't said, I will quickly check through. I put out an Instagram Q&A just to make sure I've talked about everything people want to know about. But if there is anything else that I haven't talked about, please do feel free to ask your questions in the comments section down below. Mostly questions that I have answered already / questions that I don't think I can answer yet, but a few people asking around like, is it worth the hype? And I think it sort of has to be seen, especially for fans of the story, of the book, of the film. Certainly, I think it is going to be coming up in conversation. If you want to be a part of those conversations, then you got to see it on stage. And if you have enjoyed probably Cursed Child and Stranger Things, The First Shadow, I think if you have enjoyed those, if you enjoy that kind of impactful, visually powerful theatre and those new shows that are really pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve on stage, then this is another one that absolutely lives in that realm, and you probably need to go and see this one as well. And this one, unlike Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, of course, doesn't directly finance a transphobic tirade. Thank you, Suzanne Collins, for being a decent human being. On which note, I think I'm going to finish this particular vlog. Thank you for vicariously joining me at the first preview performance of The Hunger Games on stage in London at the Troubadour Theatre Canary Wharf. I would say that I'm now going to sleep, but I'm not. I'm now going to edit everything that you have just watched and put it online so that more people can find out about The Hunger Games. Share all your questions down below, stay tuned for a full review, and subscribe to my theatre-themed YouTube channel for my coverage of all of the other shows. In the meantime, as always, I hope that everyone is staying safe, may the odds be ever in your favour, and that you have a stagey day. For 10 more seconds, I'm MickeyJoTheatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!